this is what we had at the very end of our last video, and it's about our trip to Florida. And this trip was just ridiculous. As an off note, I'm suffering from really bad seasonal allergies, so if I get sniffly or whatever, I'll try to cut out whatever I can, but if it stays in there, that's why. North Texas is terrible for me. Like, the last time we were here in the spring, my whole face swelled up, my eyes swelled shut, I got these huge blotchy rashes, I broke out in full body hives, I scared children wherever I went. It was really bad. This year, like, just this eye has been swelling, and you know, I want to like rip my face off because everything itches so bad, but you know, it's a step up from last time, so that's cool. But anyway, so this trip to Florida, now this happened a little while ago. It is late March right now, and this happened in late February, early March. So we needed to go to Florida because our driver's licenses were expiring, and we had, the way that Florida works is you can do one renewal online or by mail, I guess, and then the next one you have to come in and you have to bring in all of your documents and prove that you are who you say you are and that you still live where you say you live. And so both Mike and I had reached that point where we both needed to bring in our documents, and mine expired on my birthday in late February and Mike's expired on his birthday in early March. So we had been planning this trip for sometime in early February and it just never happened. So the weekend of my birthday hit and it's like, oh crap, we really have to get to Florida. Otherwise, I'm going to be rolling around with an expired license. I didn't actually even have my license with me because my driver's license, along with my whole wallet, got stolen on Christmas Eve. And when that happened, I was too close to the renewal like deadline, and they wouldn't send me a replacement license. So I had been, and I called them and everything. I called the state office and they were like, nope. And so I had been, you know, riding around with my passport and all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, so late February hit. We really needed to get to Florida to renew my license before it expired. So that weekend we set off. We packed everything up. We got the bus moving. We got out of town super late, and we learned a lot from these couple of trips in terms of like when we need to leave for trips, because we've done this thing where we'll leave when Mike's getting off of work and then we hit rush hour traffic and it's just a hot mess and we're already tired, and he's tired because he's been working all day and I'm tired because packing the bus up and getting everything cleaned and stowed and all of that kind of stuff is a big job by itself. And so inevitably whenever we get on the road with these late start trips, we're exhausted, and like 5 hours in it's like, oh, we need to stop, this is so bad. Anyway, so we get out of town super late and we decide that we really need to check the tires. We haven't done anything with the tires since we bought the bus, and I mean, it sat for a while outside, so there are some concerns for dry rot and all of that kind of stuff. And we wanted to make sure that the tires were properly inflated. There were no cracks that looked dangerous or anything like that. So we stopped at a truck stop. And, you know, because standard tire places won't check the tires that are on the bus. They're too big, they're whatever. So we stopped at a truck stop on the going out of town. And we're maybe 45 minutes into this trip. So we stopped and they're like, oh yeah, we can totally see you in like a half hour. It's fine. We wait like 45 minutes and then we go back in. They're like, oh, okay, well, we had an emergency call. One of our techs is out, so it's going to be a little bit longer, maybe like an hour. We're like, well, it's almost there. That's fine. We'll wait. So we keep waiting and keep waiting and keep waiting. And finally, I think it's been like 2 hours and we go in, we're like, so what's going on? Can we get our tires looked at? And they're like, yeah, it's going to be probably like 4 hours now. So maybe like midnight. And we're like, really? That seems excessive. Why didn't anyone come out and tell us? We were sitting right there in the parking lot waiting to have our tires checked. So we decided that tires were fine. It's whatever. It's not a big deal. We'll just go for it. So we leave and now it's like 10:30 at night. It is late to be starting a drive to get from North Texas all the way back to Florida. And it's Thursday. Super late on Thursday. So we've got Friday to get our driver's licenses renewed, and we've potentially got Monday, but we have to be back in Texas by Tuesday. So we're driving and it's super late and we decide that we really need to get out of Texas before we stop. So we make it into Shreveport, Louisiana. It's like right on the line. It's the first big city that you make. So we hit the first truck stop that we can find in Louisiana. And we are exhausted. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. We are so tired and so cranky, and it was just not good. So we stopped and Mike's like, okay, we can sleep for like 4 hours tops, and then we need to be back on the road so that we can make it to Pensacola before the businesses close so that we can get into the DMV and renew our licenses. And then we'll have the weekend, tool around, do whatever, slowly make our way back. It'll be great. So we sleep for like 3 hours. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning and we wake up, we get on the road. I don't function well on very little sleep. Mike does better than me, but he had pulled an all-nighter the night before, so he's down really for the count. And I'm cranky, he's cranky. We're just at each other's throats the whole time. And we realize that the time that it's going to take, we're not going to make it to Pensacola, to the first DMV over the state line. We are, luckily that first county is Escambia County, and they will take anybody from any county. There are some counties like Orange, which is where Mike is, and Santa Rosa, and a few other ones that will only service the people that live in that county, because I guess they've got, you know, a substantial population, and so it's just going to be too much if they start bringing in everybody from the state. But Escambia, because it's a small county, it's not really all that populated. Their offices take in Florida residents from anywhere in the state. So we're like, okay, we can make it into the first DMV that we're going to hit over the state lines. That's the plan. But we realize we're not going to make it in time for close of business on Friday. And we're like, oh crap. All right, that's fine. Not a big deal. We keep driving. We're past Shreveport. We're, you know, into Louisiana. And we realize that, oh, wait a second. Monday is President's Day, and that means they might be closed. So we call the DMV and ask if they're open on Monday, and they're like, nope, we're closed, it's President's Day. And we're like, ah, shit, we can't stay until Tuesday. So we have driven all the way into Louisiana, and at this point it's like, well, this trip is totally screwed. Like, we can't do our objectives. Mike can't cancel his classes for Tuesday, and this is just where we're at. We're going to have to turn around and try again later. So we stopped, and it was just a total fail for that first trip. Like, just poor planning on our part. Nothing went the way that it should have. Everything took so much longer than we thought it was going to. It was just bad. So we stopped and we slept for like 5 hours. And when we finally woke back up, we were feeling much better, much more, you know, in harmony with each other and all of that kind of stuff. And so we turned back around, went back to North Texas, parked, and repeated this trip the next weekend. So the next weekend rolls around, we make the same mistake in terms of leaving, and we leave Thursday night when Mike gets out of his class, and we packed everything up and we get back on the road. And this time we know we're not going to make it for Friday. Like, we're not really even trying to make it for Friday. That's just not going to happen. So we're shooting to get there during the weekend. And then we were going to go to the DMV early Monday morning. Like, get there before the doors open, get in line, get everything renewed, and then hit the road straight back to make it to Texas. We're slow in the bus. Our top speed is like 58, 59. And so it just takes us a long time to get to places. So what should have been like a 10-hour drive was really more like a 14, 16-hour drive, plus our stops and all of that kind of stuff, and we're just slow. So that's the plan. Everything's fine, everything's dandy, cool, we're good to go. Okay, so we get into Florida, or we don't get into Florida, actually. We're in Alabama, and we stop right by Mobile, and that's where we decide to stay for the night. And then, so this is Friday. So Friday night we make it into Mobile, and Saturday and Sunday we're going to go to the beach and hang out. We're down by the Gulf Shores. This is the area that I grew up in, and so, you know, we're planning to go see a bunch of the different things that I remember from when I was little, and yada yada yada, all of that kind of stuff. It's going to be a good time. Well, we can't find any campgrounds that are open. We can't find RV parks that are open, or that have spots available. And we do need electricity at some point. We're not totally set up for road trips yet. Like, we don't have holding tanks, so we can't use our water, and we don't have solar, so we need to be hooked up to use the electricity. So we're basically sort of like glamping at this point. It's like glamorous camping. We're in our home, in the bus, but we don't have electricity and we don't have water. So we just kind of have to bring everything with us. So we hang out a lot in truck stops and like take showers and stuff there, which is fine. It works out a-okay, but you know, for long-term trips, it's not great. But anyway, so we make it into Mobile and we stop at a truck stop. I think it's a Love's that we stopped in, and slept and stayed the night there. And so Saturday morning, early in the morning, we wake up and we're like, okay, we're gonna go to the beach, it's gonna be great. Well, it's super empty, so we decide to go get our tires checked, finally. And really, we just want to make sure that they're inflated properly and that they're, you know, that kind of stuff. So we bring it on over, and the guy is super friendly, very nice, all of that kind of stuff. And he's filling the tires up, and as it turns out, a couple of them were underinflated, and one in the back was way, way overinflated. And that tire had a big issue. So I'll include a picture right up here, but a huge hunk had been taken out of it. Like, it had been gouged out of the tire. And what happens is when tires are overinflated, they're really solid. And so we probably hit like a really rough patch of the road. The roads in Louisiana are they're really bad. They're really rough. There's a lot of potholes. We were not on the main interstates. We were on, you know, state roads and county roads and all of that kind of stuff. So they're not like fabulously maintained to begin with. And so there were some really rough patches of road that we hit. And, you know, he's like, this tire is a really big problem. You're going to have some issues with it. And I'm like, oh, we can't drive all the way back to Texas on a busted up tire that could blow at any point, because it is seriously compromised, like structurally. And so we're like, oh, that's cool. Well, it's Saturday in the deep south, and that means that most businesses are closed, like specialty businesses and stuff like that typically are closed. So almost all of the tire places for truck tires are closed, and we're looking for what is now considered a specialty tire. We had 10R 22.5s, which used to be standard for school buses. They used to be a really common truck tire. They're big, they're great. Well, they're being phased out now, really, even by the school districts, and so school districts still use them, but not in anywhere the same quantity. Trucks don't use them anymore. They are actually a really difficult tire to get a hold of all of a sudden. So I say all of a sudden, but it's probably been like this for a few years, and we're just now looking into it. So we call around and call around and call around, and finally we find a a Goodyear commercial tire place that's open and they have the tire that we want. And we go in to get quoted and they quote us $1,000 for 2 tires, which is astronomical. And when you start replacing rear tires, because we have dualies, so it's 2 tires on each side in the back, it gets really complicated because the tires need to be even in terms of the tread and the wear, because otherwise it's wonky while you're driving down the road. And so you need to make sure that all 4 of those tires are more or less the same. And that's cool. So we can't just replace the 1 tire. We need to, at a minimum, do both tires on that side. And optimally, we would want to do all 4 tires so that they're the same. Or we find used tires that have like the same tread level. So yeah. So we get quoted $1,000 for the 2. And we're like, fuck no. There's no way that we can even remotely begin to afford this. We're not planning on buying tires to begin with. That is just way too much money for this. We just can't. Like, we are overextended as is. Our budget cannot handle this. So we keep calling. I finally called, I think it was a TA, and asked if they had it. And they're like, oh yeah, we've totally got those tires. Not a problem. They're super cheap. It's like $200 a tire. Come on in. We'll swap it out for you. And it was like, great. And it was on the other side of Mobile. So we drove like a half hour-ish to get to that TA. And we get there and they're like, oh no, actually we don't have that tire. I'm sorry. The lady that was helping me was like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, I didn't realize there was a difference between this tire and this tire. We have this one, but we don't have your 10R 22.5s. And we're like, poop. There's nowhere else to go. We've called like the 2 tire places that are open on a Saturday in Mobile, and they don't have the tires we want except for the Goodyear, which is just way too expensive. And we can't wait until Monday to get the tires swapped out because we need to be on the road Monday morning. We need them now. And so we're talking to the guy at the tire center, and he says, well, what you can actually do, there are a couple of tires that you can swap out instead. And you can go to 11R 22.5s, which are a little bit taller, or you can do low profile 22.5s. And those are a little bit shorter. And he was like, I've got both of them in stock. Both of them are fairly common. The 11R 22.5s are actually a little bit more common and easier to find. They're a pretty standard truck tire. They are easier to work on. So, and we're like, okay, well, you know, we'll do that then. In order to do that, you have to swap out all 4 tires. You can't have different heights on them. Now, the front and back axle don't have to be the same. You can have shorter tires on the front or bigger tires on the front, and then vice versa, swapped on the back. But the 4 tires in the back, or I guess what I should say is that on each axle, the tires have to be the same. So I can't put a tall one on the right front side and not on the left front side. Those need to be the same. So in the back, that means 4 tires have to be replaced. So we're like, okay, well, what's going to be the cost for that? And they're like, well, you can do new and, you know, blah, 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 all of this kind of stuff, all 4 of them, $1,400 plus labor and all of that, including labor and disposal fees and yada, yada, yada. And we probably could have gotten a better deal if we'd been able to shop around, but we were kind of stuck with our location, with the time that we needed them, like we needed them stat like that day. And so we just didn't have a whole lot of options for shopping around. But, so that's what we did. We swapped out the back tires, all 4 of the back ones, to 11R 22.5s. And we actually get like 2 more miles an hour. Like we can get up to 59 miles an hour now, which is super exciting. We're like real speedy. And, you know, so we waited and we got lunch and blah, blah, blah. Finn hung out in the bus the entire time that they were working on it, and he was great. He wasn't bothered by it. He didn't bark frenetically at them the entire time, and he did really, really good with it. So we got all the tires replaced, and everything was great. So we go to the beach, we, you know, drive around. see all the stuff. We did find like a little mobile home park where we could park for the night. It was like $30, which is great. So we stopped and slept there, and then got up early on Monday morning and went to the DMV and renewed our licenses. It was super fast. It was super easy. Finn hung out in the bus in the parking lot and he was fine. And then we got on the road and we headed on back, and the return trip was really weird. We couldn't tell if like the tires were wobbling or if they were properly secured or something like that. Like, the bus felt weird to drive. And as it turns out, we did some research on it. When you get new tires, and you get especially big ones with really big tread on them, the wobble is actually a little normal, and it goes away in about 100 miles. And that's just because it's, you know, sort of the tread and everything, and it's lining itself up with the road and whatever. But apparently it's totally normal. And a lot of people report that happening when they get new tires on commercial trucks, or if they're on, you know, trucks that they've added on like the super huge large tires. They complain a lot about the wobble, and it's totally normal. So we were 100% fine, and it did go away in about 100 miles. So it cleared up, everything was fine, and yeah, it was really good. Well, we're driving through Alabama, going back up Alabama, and we hit this huge rainstorm. I mean, like, it was like whiteout. It was so bad. Really scary driving the bus in that kind of weather. You know, I grew up in Florida. Mike spent a really big portion of his life in Florida. Like, we're well accustomed to rain and driving in rainy conditions, so that wasn't an issue. We did find out that we've got like 3 leaks on the dash though, so all of a sudden we've got water pouring down in the middle, we've got water coming down on the driver's side, like I just getting like sprayed and it was so much water. So, you know, Mike's diving through the bag trying to find towels so that we can mop it up before it gets into any electrical components and really starts causing a problem, because I used to have a Jeep Wrangler, and Jeeps are notorious for their leaks because they're soft tops and, you know, everything folds and removes, and so there are gaps in a lot of them, especially in the old ones. So I had this big dash leak, and it had gotten into electronic components and actually stopped the windshield wipers, and so I didn't want that process to be repeated in the bus. So we're trying to like stem the tide to make sure nothing drips down where it shouldn't be, you know, nothing shuts off. Everything was okay, but it was like, oh my god, okay, that's fine. So now we've got these 2 big leaks. We need to figure out exactly where they're coming from, how to patch them, all of that kind of stuff. We keep on driving, and then our closets break. So we had put new closets up, and they're copper pipes, and they're bolted into the ribs, and then they've got fittings so that, you know, their elbows and T's and all of that kind of stuff. Well, I guess the glue didn't hold very well on one of them, and the whole thing just fell down. And so, you know, we look into the back, and there's like this copper piping. It's like all over the place. There are closet components, clothes are everywhere. Like, it's just a hot mess. And I was like, oh my god. So that's cool, that's broken. We keep on driving, and then we realize we stopped somewhere to get gas, and we're looking at the back like, this looks a little weird back here, and we realize that the 2 rear windows on each side are loose. Like, the actual windows themselves are no longer properly secured in their little window holes, and you can push the windows in. Like, one half is still properly glued, the other half is not, and those you can push in. Like, they're totally loose, and, you know, if it rains, like, we're gonna have an issue because it's not properly sealed anymore. And so we're driving like, I hope we don't lose windows, that's cool. So windows break, closets break, front leaks, it's a mess. We get home and we're setting everything up, and I guess at some point the plumbing jostled and came loose underneath the sink because I'm, you know, tidying up, I'm doing some stuff, and all of a sudden there's just this huge puddle of water underneath the sink, and it's like, oh crap, really? Again? Something else? So the whole sink component had actually broken, and because we have a bathroom sink from IKEA, and so it's all of the pipes and stuff that came with it, and nothing is standard because it's IKEA and that's just how they do things. So when that one piece broke, down in the piping somewhere, we had to actually replace the entire thing because there is no way to get a replacement part for that. So we had to, and then like another part where the drain is, and there's a little basket that fits in, and there's a screw that goes down that actually holds the pipes up to the bottom of the sink. That whole little contraption that the screw fits into that actually holds it together, that whole thing broke. And so we needed to get like a new drainy bit. We had to get new plumbing. It was just this whole thing. So we ended up having to make an emergency trip to Home Depot that night so that we could actually have a sink that was working, and it was just bananas. So all in all, the trip to Florida just to renew our licenses ended up costing us 4 new tires, 2 broken windows, a broken closet, 2 new dash leaks, and a broken sink. And then for a while the fridge didn't turn on, so we had to figure out what was going on with the fridge. Like, it was just like one thing after another for the whole trip, and just wow. Just, man, it was rough. But we're back in North Texas. We're fixed almost everything. We still have to figure out what we're going to do with the windows, but you know, otherwise everything is okay. And the new tires are great, so that's super exciting. And yeah, so that was our trip to Florida. It's good times. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, Florida. You're great. So yeah, anyway, I hope it was entertaining. Hope you guys learned some fun and exciting things about tires and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I will see y'all later. Bye.